Can we adopt Adam Smith's concept of the invisible hand, which is the foundation of capitalism, modern economics? Can we adapt this 18th century concept to our 21st climate change century in a way of the green invisible hand? Think about it. We are ditching fossil fuels, coal and petrol and oil. Now, in 21st century, we're saying this is bad, it generates planet-warming greenhouse gas emissions, and we need to rapidly, as fast as possible, we need to decarbonize. Leave these fossil fuels in the ground and replace them, for example, with renewable energy, right? But so that's 18th century technology, burning fossil fuels for electricity, which we now recognizing universally as very bad and needing a new way of getting electricity. So we're not getting rid of electricity, that's fantastic, we need more of it, but we're changing the way we get electricity. So it doesn't make climate change worse. Now, similarly, this market-based economy, which also originated in the 18th century, Adam Smith and his Wealth of Nations, right? That's 18th century idea. And similarly, that needs update. We're not getting rid of capitalism or market economics, that invisible hand that Adam Smith originated. That's fantastic. However, like the way we get electricity, it needs greening up, it needs updating. And I believe that this updating, this greening up, is the green invisible hand, right? And it's already happening, as we will explore in this video. I am Jan from sustainablebutterflies.com.au, and on the screen you see the 5 pillars of sustainability. You are probably familiar with the concept of invisible hand, which is the founding principle of capitalism. Originated in 1759 by Adam Smith, the Scottish father or founder of modern economics, this model of invisible hand, this concept, refers to spontaneous, natural and automatic allocation of resources, materials, labor and pricing of these things within an economy, right? With as little government intervention as possible. It is the belief in free, spontaneous, market, capitalist environment. And the Wealth of Nations, which was his sort of opus magnum, his most important work, the point there is that the wealthy society and prosperous society is the result of individuals pursuing their own self-interest and acting out of their own self-interest. So I act out of my self-interest, you act out of your self-interest, our neighbors pursue their self-interest, everyone in the suburb pursues their self-interest, the whole town pursues their self-interest, and the whole country, each individual, by pursuing their self-interest, it will create wealthy, prosperous and harmonious society. It's a bottom-up approach. Let's see an example. Imagine that you are a founder of a shoe-making factory. So for your shoe-making factory to be prosperous, you need to be able to attract qualified and competent and good shoemakers, right? You need to pay them well enough to attract them to come and work and produce shoes, right? If you pay them too low, you will either attract the bad shoemakers or no shoemakers, and as a result you won't be able to make shoes and then you will go bust. But if you pay them well enough, high enough, you will attract good and qualified shoemakers who will then happily work at your factory. You will produce shoes and more of them, right? Therefore, you will maximize your self-interest as the owner of the shoemaking factory. The shoemakers will maximize and pursue their own self-interest. These self-interests will converge, and that convergence of self-interest will result in prosperous shoemaking factory, and it will have peripheral spillover effects. It will support other jobs, such as the driver who distributes the shoes from the factory to the retail store, the employees of the retail store, the cafe around the factory, right? The catering company, etc., etc., and the government who will get revenue from the taxes from the factory, people, customers who will be walking and enjoying their shoes, right? And the whole society will benefit from this activity. It's this invisible hand, the market, that does the equilibrium, the balancing of what's the right price for the leather to charge for the shoes, what's the right wage for the workers, right? What is the right price for the shoes? All of this balancing is created by this invisible hand, right? It's the bottom-up approach where the market decides. The opposite of this is centrally planned, like in communist countries where the government just says, this year we must produce 10,000 tons of steel, right? So it's top-down, and then industry just follows what it was dictated from the top, from some centrally planned authority, right? That's the opposite of Adam's hand's invisible hand, which is bottom-up, natural, spontaneous, automatic kind of thing. So far so good, right? This invisible hand is very efficient. It's amazing how it is able to allocate resources and prices and labor and distribution and all that. Fantastic. But there are big problems with this, obviously, right? As you probably understand, right? Well, the reason why we have climate change and pollution and environmental problems, one of the reasons, not the only reason, is that this market-based invisible hand never actually priced or valued the environment and nature on which everything depends. So while we all need water, land and resources and animals and fresh air and everything, like healthy soils and all that, this model where I pursue my self-interest, you pursue your self-interest, and Amy pursues her self-interest, and Tom pursues his self-interest, and where these self-interests converge, that's the foundation, that's the floor, the basis, the jumping off point for healthy and prosperous wealth of nations, Adam Smith's book, right, and healthy society and the world. It is quite myopic because it assumes that that's all there is. Just me and my self-interest and you and your self-interest, and it does not see beyond itself. It's like a kind of bubble, kind of like a imagined, illusory sort of utopia, idealistic world, theoretical world, right? Because there is no, if the shoe factory owner pollutes, just discharge some chemicals into the river, or if I cut the rainforest for profit and you will benefit from it, it would be, in just purely economic terms, it would be great. But again, this was fantastic, great idea, very efficient, but that needs update, right? And that's what the green invisible hand is. It's not to ditch capitalism and market economics, but it's to have the green invisible hand, or at least put this invisible hand in a green glove. And we need this update, right? Because, as Tim Cronin from WWF Australia said, the nature, as we often say, nature is priceless, right? I say to you, yeah, nature is priceless. That's awesome that nature is priceless. But in a market-based system, when you say that something is priceless, that means it's worthless because there is no price on it. That means it's not valued, it's not accounted for. And that's the trouble that we have with in this conversation. And that's where this green invisible hand comes in. Carbon markets. Now, before we look at a concrete example of this green invisible hand in action, let me just share a little bit of theoretical conceptual background. So, this green invisible hand is the Adam Smith's invisible hand that we know, but in a green glove. So, it's got carbon price embedded in it, so that it self-allocates, it distributes automatically and spontaneously the resources, materials, labor and pricing within a free market capitalist society, economy, so that it encourages low carbon materials, activities, products and services by making them attractive, by pricing them low enough for customers to buy, right? And also by investors wanting to support these activities, therefore funding it, and which stimulates that market, right? But at the same time, by pricing out of the market, making it or discouraging it, making it very expensive, the high carbon products, markets, and products, services, and business behavior. So it's like this kind of invisible green balancing act, equilibrium, right? That self-allocates resources, but with that green asterisk. In the previous video and article, linked in the video description, we looked at farmers, sheep farmers in New Zealand. These farmers are now earning 5 times more by planting trees on their sheep farm than what they were earning by having sheep to graze. How is that possible? Well, they are earning NZUs, or New Zealand units, carbon credits, and because these carbon credits have gone so much higher in value recently, it makes economic sense, because the price for carbon is high enough. It makes economic sense, it stimulates, it incentivizes these farmers to make change, and they do. They don't need to believe, they don't need to love the environment, they don't need to care for the environment, but they do it purely as a result of this invisible hand, green invisible hand. In Australia, farmers are earning ACCUs, which are Australian Carbon Credit Units, which is the equivalent of the new NZUs in New Zealand. According to Carbon Farming Australia, farmers here are earning these units by planting native trees, but also by storing carbon in the soil, by managing their cattle in a way that allows the native vegetation to regrow, by reducing methane in their cattle herd, but also by reducing nitrous oxide, which is another greenhouse gas, in the cotton they grow, and by revegetating, growing green corridors through and around their farm. On a slightly different, but not too different note, there is another way this works. And it's not directly green invisible hand, because there are no carbon credit units involved, but I just want to give you another example. So, and the example is linked in the article, linked in the video description. There is a video. Farmer in New South Wales, when there was drought 2 years ago, I think, he was struggling. He had big sheep farm, central New South Wales, somewhere arid and dry. But he covered, the renewable energy company wanted to put solar panels on his farm. So he covered half of his sheep farm with solar panels, and he was earning income by leasing this land to the renewable energy company. And on the other half of the farm, he kept his sheep, and the sheep was kind of roaming in between the panels. If you watch the video, you can see it. And so he benefited financially. He was from this market behavior that values low carbon activity, and that is renewable energy, because we are decarbonizing. So renewable energy needs to put solar panels somewhere in Australia, remote, on a cattle farm. So they needed the farmer. He leased his land, he earned income from leasing the land. The company is earning money from selling renewable energy to the grid. So they're both benefiting, the farmer and the company. And none of them has to be converted or be a environmentalist or anything. So, but it's a green invisible hand in the glove, because it results in a low carbon activity, future decarbonized world, but also both are benefiting the farmer and the renewable energy and the whole society, because it will be clean energy, it won't be generated by fossil fuels, right? So that's another kind of slightly different example. So in this video, I just wanted to outline and think through this concept, right, of the green invisible hand. It's not the official concept. I just see that this conventional invisible hand that Adam Smith is the one Adam Smith came up with, and the one we've been using for 250 years, very efficient. I don't want to ditch capitalism, market economics. I think it's very useful and very helpful, and it has helped millions and hundreds of millions of people with problems, as many things have their bad side, which is natural, that's fine. However, there are many problems. I don't want anyone to buy wholesale into it, but let's keep exploring this. Let's keep thinking and exploring as we think this through. Climate change, carbon markets, all of this stuff, it's complex, it's non-linear, and let's probe this. There are many other things other than carbon that are disturbing, such as coral bleaching and soil erosion and deforestation and plastic pollution and all of that. So I'm not saying that putting price on carbon will resolve everything. No, I'm not saying that. And in this video, I gave you some positive examples of how the green invisible hand can actually and does work. But there are some bad things that it can do, which is paradoxical, because the green invisible hand, and that's something we will explore in the next video and article, it can actually harm the environment, even though it acts on a promise of helping the environment. It's a green invisible hand, right? So that's what we're going to explore in the video next time, and you have a great day. Bye.